Our presentation right now is Fingerprints on Mobile Devices, Abusing and Leaking, with our presenters Tao Wei and Yulong Zhang. Gentlemen?
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to our talk at the lunchtime. I'm Tao and this is Yulong. Today we will present our work on Android fingerprint security. And this is the teamwork with Zhaofeng and Hui. And today, there are more and more smartphones equipped with fingerprint sensors. And these 5 brands are the existing smartphone in the United States markets. But in the near future, there will be more than 50% of the smartphones will have a fingerprint sensor by 2019. Fingerprints improve usability quite a lot. People can use fingerprint to unlock the system screen, to pay, to authenticate. You can do a lot, and without using the boring and insecure passcode. However, there are still other risks for using fingerprint. And the biggest one is the leaking. If you leak a password, it's easy. You can replace it. However, if you leak your fingerprint, it will be leaked for the rest of your life, and you have only 10 fingerprints to leak. Moreover, it is associated with your identity record, criminal history, immigration history, and banking credentials, etc. So it is very dangerous. And it would be even worse if the attacker can remotely harvest fingerprints in a large scale. Researchers have shown that fingerprints can be stolen from a polished surface, like a glass or smartphone screen. Furthermore, fingerprints can even be extracted from waving photos. So you should take a photo like this, not like this. And then attackers can spool fingerprints using electronic conductive materials. And they can use these fake fingerprints to unlock your smartphone to store your money from your mobile accounts. And today we will talk about system attacks against the fingerprints. And we will focus on 4 kinds of attack. To our knowledge, we are the first one to discuss system attacks against the fingerprint authentication frameworks. Today, I will introduce the design of Android fingerprint frameworks, including the recognition and the framework to support recognition. After that, Yulong will present the system attacks against the fingerprints. Okay, let's talk about recognition first. Fingerprint recognition is very, very complex. Usually, it includes multiple steps. The first phase is about the minutia extraction. And the system will convert grayscale raw image into the face image and then into the skeleton image, and then identify those critical details and extract them as minutiae. And after that, the system will use some magical algorithm to match the extracted minutiae against the database to identify the owner. The workflow is rather complex, so the vendor should provide a framework to support this workflow. And this framework is the oldest one, the fingerprint framework without trust zone. And all the old, the fingerprint framework on the old laptop are all similar to this. So this issue is not only limited to a smartphone, but will affect all the smart devices with fingerprint sensors. As you can see, if an app wants to use the fingerprint, it will contact the fingerprint service, and then to use the kernel fingerprint sensor driver to access the hardware to read the image. After processing the minutiae, it will be stored in the encrypted fingerprint database. This framework is vulnerable to the routing attack. If attackers can root the device, they can steal your fingerprints either from the memory or from the storage. So how to defend? The answer from the ARM community is the trust zone. trust zone can separate the system into normal world and secure world. And then the system can contain potential compromise in the normal world. By using trust zone, here is the new fingerprint framework. Instead of access the hardware directly from the kernel space, the kernel will use the trust zone driver to talk to the secure world in the trust zone, and the fingerprint translate in the trust zone will access the hardware and store the fingerprints. In this way, even with the kernel modular privilege, attacker cannot access the secret fingerprint data. Due to some storage limitation, usually vendor will only store the secure key in the trust zone and store the encrypted fingerprint database in the normal world. But due to the key in the safe place, the attacker still cannot do too much in the normal world. So now we have a supposedly solid framework. So vendors are happy and made an alliance, the FIDO alliance, to provide simpler, stronger authentication, including fingerprints. As you can see, most of active players in the mobile area join this alliance. We use the Samsung Galaxy S5 as an example. This Android phone uses these components, including the Exynos 5 with the trust zone and using the Synaptics fingerprint sensor, Samsung's own phone framework, and the lock implementation for the FIDO standard, and the PayPal as a money transaction service. Okay, Yudong will present exciting system attacks. Welcome, Yudong.
Thanks, Sal, for the introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to sell you 4 attacks targeting at the mobile fingerprint framework. And as a quick sales pitch, in the first attack, we will try to deceive you, make you thinking that you are swiping for something, but actually we're using your fingerprint to do something else. In the second and third attack, we can show you that the attacker can remotely harvest fingerprints in a large scale. In the fourth attack, we can show you that the attacker can embed backdoor fingerprints in your device, and he can use it to access your phone. So let's go to the first attack. Before we go to the details of the attack, we have to clarify 2 terms. The one is authentication, and the other is authorization. Authentication only means who you are, like your passport. Authorization contains more context, and it means what you can do, like the visa stamp on your passport. So for example, here the passport authenticates the identity of yourself, but the visa shows, for example, here it's a B1, B2, and there are other kinds of visa that allows you to work in the United States. Authentication is just like every day, like you badging into the company, you use the card to authenticate yourself. Well, authorization is like your everyday activity using your credit card to authorize a payment. So what's the most important thing when you do authorization? It's the context. So only with the context, you know what you are authorized for. So facing this kind of situation, I'm not sure how many of you guys dare to swipe your credit card without a context. You don't know what you are doing. So what are your fingerprints? Is it authentication or is it authorization? Here I want to do a quick survey. So how many of you guys use fingerprint to unlock your mobile phone? There are plenty of you guys. So here is the good news or bad news. For all of you raising your hand, potentially you have been the victim of this attack. So do you ever have a second thought when you use your fingerprint to unlock your device? Well, probably you don't. like myself, I don't have a second thought. So what if I tell you, when you do the swiping, the attacker in the background can transfer your money away? Would you still like swipe the fingerprints without second thought? Here are some quick questions. How can you testify what's happening behind this fingerprint swiping behavior? Well, you cannot tell. Because the vendor just showed you a lock image, and you swipe, the lock disappeared. You don't know what's happening behind. And what's the difference of swiping to unlock the device with swiping to authorize a mobile payment transaction? Well, probably you can tell from the UI display, but in the background, you cannot tell. So before we do the tech demo, I want to show you how fingerprint-based mobile payment works. So here's, sorry, let me start from the beginning. So here is a payment app. I want to transfer some money to my girlfriend. So I press transfer request. And the app immediately asks me for authentication or authorization, whatever it is. It asks me to swipe the finger over the home key. It didn't tell me what's happening here. It is actually for authorization because it asks me to fill in all the details, like who to send the money to and how much money I want to send to. And only if I approve this transaction, the money will be transferred away. So in essence, in the normal fingerprint-based mobile payment framework, your fingerprint acts as an authorization. But we can launch the confused attack to lure the user to think that this is authentication, but it is used for authorization. So here is the attack demo. As you can see, that this is the unlocking interface that everyone can see on your phone. And now the user tried to unlock the phone. And boom, the money is transferred away. So this is the illustration of what's happening in the background. So in the real world, when the attacker launches an attack, he will not show the transaction process to you. I just want to tell you what's happening behind, so I displayed them in the UI interface. So the attacker, with the authorization, it fills in all the details, like who to send the money to, which is the attacker's account, and how much money he wants to transfer, for example, $1,000. And he can just do this automatically in the background without being noticed. So this is the vulnerability. Applications often mistakenly treat authorization as authentication and fail to provide context proofs for authorization. So even the user can tell what's the difference between authentication and authorization. Without proper context proof, the attacker can still mislead the victim to authorize a malicious transaction by disguising it as authentication or another transaction. For example, he's mimicking transfer money to President Obama, but actually it's transfer money to Yulong. So in this demo, the attacker fixed lock screen to fool the user to think that he is swiping finger to unlock the device. But actually, the fingerprint is used to authorize a money transfer in the background. There are some solutions right now. So FIDO Alliance provides a specification that you have to implement what you see is what you sign. Basically, the vendors should enable the user to display a context proof to the user to let the user know what he's doing with his fingerprint. But there is the assumption. The transaction confirmation display should be trusted. And this is a strong assumption. For the original fingerprint auth framework without trust zone, there is simply no reliable way to provide the authorization context proof because you just implement the UI in the normal world above the Linux kernel in the normal Android framework. So if the attacker can get system privilege or even root privilege, he can easily forge the UI display to you. The framework with trust zone can be improved to achieve this goal to provide trusted context proof. But so far, we haven't seen any major vendor that implemented this feature. So let's go to the second attack. I think everyone thinks that your fingerprints is well secured on your phone. So imagine like this is the lock on your fingerprint. But the reality is like this. So for those talent hackers sitting down there, can anyone tell what's going wrong here? Anyone? Exactly. So this is word readable. Any unprivileged process or apps can steal the user's fingerprints by reading this image file. Although the file format is distorted, which I will cover later, it is easy to recover. We found this problem on HTC One Max. HTC has patched it by working with its vendor after our notification. So we dumped the file in binary format and show it to you guys like this. This is just one line of the binary file. So we can see that it has multiple lines similar to this one. So we can guess this is a bitmap. And each line starts with FE01. Each line is not properly 4-byte aligned because as a bitmap image, it has to be 4-byte aligned. So we thought we can fix it by padding. So this is how the image looks like when we dump this image from the device. So at first glance, it doesn't look like anything. So we do the 4-byte align padding by padding some like 0 in the end of each line. It will look like this. So after seeing this, you can tell this is definitely someone's fingerprint, right? We don't know why it's separated into two parts. The left part is double the width of the right part, but clearly it's a fingerprint image. So someone may ask me, this is like easy to fix problem. We just hide the fingerprints in the trust zone. Then you cannot access it. Is it true? Well, trust zone is not unbreakable if vendor's code is buggy. So we have plenty of works out there attacking the trust zone. Like this year, the guy didn't have a visa passed, so he didn't come here to give the talk. So he found a bug in trust zone and then got code execution in trust zone. So in this way, the attacker can still get the fingerprint data from trust zone. So that's the second attack. So let's go to the third attack, which is my favorite. So it's the fingerprint sensor spying attack. What it is? Let's get some background. So on mobile devices with trust zone, it pretty much looks like this. You have user space, kernel space, and there's hardware beneath. And the world is separated into two. One is the normal world, and one is protected by trust zone. In the normal world, you cannot access anything inside trust zone. If an app wants to use a fingerprint feature, it will call the fingerprint service in the normal world user space. The fingerprint service has an encrypted fingerprint database, and it will contact with trust zone daemon to do further communications with the sensor. The trust zone daemon will talk to the trust zone driver in the kernel space. The trust zone driver in the kernel space will forward the request to monitor and trust zone microkernel in the trust zone. It will further proxy the request to the one of the trustlet, which is the fingerprint handler. The fingerprint trustlet will further talk to the SPI driver in the trust zone and communicate with the sensor device. So this looks pretty much perfect, right? Everything is separate, is while isolated. The operations are only performed in the trust zone, and the data is kept in the trust zone. But the problem is, do we have a path from the normal world to access the sensor? Well, I can tell you it is. There is a way. So in the normal world kernel space, there is a SPI driver where the app can talk to. So the SPI driver can directly talk to the device in the normal world. Imagine the app is a malware. Then the malware can directly talk to the fingerprint sensor and read your fingerprint. By reverse engineering the proprietary binary driver and read the vendor's open source kernel code, one can easily obtain the operations enabled, like the I/O control power on, power off, device reset, set clock, and how to initialize the device to a stream reading mode. So this is easy to recover, but there's still some challenge, because when you do the I/O control communications, you have to carry some protocol data to communicate with the sensor. But this is a big challenge, but it's feasible to get, because you can just hook the I/O control methods to obtain the protocol binaries. So I can give you a quick demo of how I achieved this attack. So you can see that there is a phone using USB cable connecting to my laptop. This is a pretty general problem shared by many vendors, so you don't have to concern about which device I'm holding. I'm using ADB shell to connect to the device. So as an unprivileged user, you can also do this. But for illustration, I'll just use shell user for the attack. So I wrote a small program called FPR, fingerprint hack. What it does is to open the fingerprint scanner for reading and register as a listener of many of the device interrupts. And then it will initialize and calibrate the device for reading. And then it's ready for swipe. The attacker can do this in the background all the day, all the year, without being noticed by you. So now I'm going to put my finger on my home button, which is also the fingerprint sensor. Hopefully I can succeed. There you go. Once I touch my home button, you can see a lot of data dumped out. So let me roll up to the very beginning. So probably you'll think that the data looks quite familiar, because I just showed the data to you. Each line is starting with FE01. So this is one line of the bitmap image. The line starting with a counting number as 2 and increasing by 1 for each line. So 2, 3, 4, 5. So each line has a number with it. So if we group those lines into one big bitmap, you can get the idea of how it looks like. It's just my fingerprint. But I'm not that silly to show you my fingerprint here. So we have confirmed this vulnerability on devices, including HTC One Max and Samsung S5. On Samsung devices, there is something to be noted. So the attacker has to root the device and load it with a carefully crafted ROM to enable some of the device operations. But as long as you can get the root, you can do this easily. So both vendors have promptly patched this vulnerability per our notification. And it should be a general problem, not only limited to HTC and Samsung. So most of the vendors should be concerned about this. So why? Why there is this kind of problem here? So imagine the user wants to swipe the fingerprint. He touched the fingerprint. He touched the sensor, and he wants to see some interaction from the normal world UI. For example, if you want to register fingerprint, the UI will tell you that here's step 1. Please step your finger for once. Oh, it's not a perfect fingerprint. Please swipe it for another time. Such kind of issue is handled by normal world the user UI. So the normal world UI has to further proxy the device operation request to the trusted zone device. The trusted zone device is the one that actually can operate with the device. But the normal world UI should reflect what's going on down there. So he has to read the device state, like whether the fingerprint has already been captured, whether the device is ready, etc. So it has to access the device in the normal world. It's unavoidable. So that's why it still needs direct control of the device, which also will open the access to the malware. So in this way, the attacker can easily break through this path to steal the fingerprint from the fingerprint sensor. So after our notification, Samsung is actively working on this issue. And here's how Samsung currently solves this problem. So instead of rendering the fingerprint registering, fingerprint logging on interactions in normal world UI, they currently try to render the operations in trusted zone UI. So in this way, all the operations can be just implemented in trusted zone without enabling the normal world hackers to get away to access the normal world sensor, to get through to the sensor. So the vendors can lock down the device into the trusted zone. Only the trusted zone code can access the can access the device. And here's how Apple solves it right now. So Apple still has the problem of allowing the normal world code to access the sensor, but it encrypts the fingerprint data reading out of the sensor. So in this way, it didn't break the design of like using normal world to reflect the status transition of the fingerprint reading framework. And still it forbids the attacker easily obtain the fingerprint data because the data is encrypted. Okay, let's go to the fourth attack, the backdoor of the pre-embedding fingerprints. So this is an image obtained from my Samsung phone. It's showing that I have 3 fingerprints registered. But this is not limited only to Samsung phones. It's a general problem. So how can you attest that only 3 fingerprints are registered here? Well, you cannot. So let's recap how the framework is designed. So the normal world framework handles the rendering of how many fingerprints are registered in the system. So the attacker can easily access this data too, and he can tamper it. So even though the framework thinks there are 3 fingerprints registered, the attacker can modify this and show to the user there are less fingerprints registered. So in this way, for example, there are 3 fingerprints registered, but essentially there could be 4 or 5 or more fingerprints registered. The trusted zone just scans the fingerprint and matches it against the encrypted fingerprints fed from the normal world. It doesn't have any clue how many fingerprints are actually stored. So the attacker can tamper the normal framework to stealthily pre-embed special fingerprint blob. It doesn't have to be the attacker's own finger. It can be anything. He can use just use something to use as a backdoor finger to swap the device. For example, he can use wood glue to force some fake finger to unlock the device. And this leaves no explicit traces, which is perfect to use. So how to achieve this? So in Android, it is usually the settings app that displays the registered fingerprint number to the users. So there is a method can count how many fingers are registered and display on the UI. So the attacker can change the return value of this method to be n minus m, where n is the actual registered fingerprints number, and m is the number of fingerprints that's pre-embedded. So n minus m is actually displayed number from the attacker to the user. One thing to be noted is if you simply modifying the settings app, it will have some problem because settings app is signed by the system signature. But this is easy to conquer. You can just change the services.jar, which is itself is not signed. You can change this jar to make the settings app to not to be verified the signing certificate. So in this way, we can bypass the signing certificate check. So here's a quick demo. So you can see I'm going to the settings to check how many fingerprints are registered. So you can see that there's only one fingerprint registered currently in the system. I have marked my fingers as number 1 finger, number 2 finger, and number 3 finger. So I'm not cheating, I can prove. So now I'm unlock the device and try to unlock the device using my first fingerprints. It works. And now I'm going to try the second one. Oh, it also works. And you can guess what's happening next. The third one also works. So the attacker can use it as a backdoor to unlock your device. So imagine that Tao, as an experienced hacker, he has many 0 days on his email thread, I guess. So I just pre-embed my fingerprint in his device. So every time he has a new exciting 0 day, I can get it. So here's a final discussion about all the 4 attacks. So mobile devices with fingerprint sensors are more and more popular, and there are more and more functionalities associated with fingerprints. But there are still severe security challenges for the vendors. So we have shown you 4 kinds of attacks here, but there could be more out there. So such kind of security flaws can lead to fingerprint leakages. So this is not simply leakage, it's fingerprint leakage. If you leak a password, you can just change it. If you leak fingerprints, this lasts for your whole life. The industry should pay more attention to audit existing design and the implementations of fingerprint frameworks. So we have a few suggestions to the mobile phone users. So you have to stick to mobile device vendors with timely patching and upgrading to the latest version, for example, to Lollipop. So don't use some pre-aged devices that can be, for example, rooted by ping pong root. And always keep your device up to date. So interesting, I just saw a ping pong root demo that he used fingerprints to unlock his device. So always install popular apps from reliable sources, such as Google Play. And for enterprise users, you have to take special care. You are not normal users. You should seek for professional services to get away from advanced persistent attacks. And to provide a better level of protection of end users, just don't root your device if unnecessary. And also just keep your device updated because the attackers will try to root your phone too. And several suggestions to mobile vendors. So vendors should also improve the security design of the fingerprint auth framework, such as improve the recognition algorithm to defend against fake fingerprint attacks, and the better protection of both fingerprint data and the device, the sensor. And you have to differentiating authorization with authentication clearly. Also, the existing fingerprint standard should be further improved to provide more detailed and secure guidelines for developers to follow. Right now, the guidelines just say you have to implement the trusted UI, but it didn't tell you how to implement it as trusted. So given the security standard, vendors still need professional security auditing to enforce security implementations. and patch vulnerabilities timely, especially those root vulnerabilities. It's not done yet. So in this talk, we only focused on mobile phones. But this also applies to all the platforms with fingerprints enabled. So for example, so many high-end laptops also have fingerprint scanners to authenticate and to authorize users' operations. For example, the laptops. So as our future work, we'll spend some time to investigate like other platforms with fingerprint scanners. So for other external fingerprint scanners that is not embedded, not integrated with the device, they also should take special care. Like there are fingerprint scanners used in immigration office, used in the custom house, used in the DMV. They are connecting to some like laptops or mobile devices, I don't know. So in this way, the attacker still has an access vector to the fingerprint scanners. So the situation is similar. So we suggest that all the vendors should like improve that current design. So that's all about our presentation, and we are open to questions. Thank you. Yes.
I think.
The question is, for Apple devices, whether the encrypted fix is per device or it's a general fix, right?
Is the key per individual device, or is there one for all?
Oh, okay. The question is actually the key, whether the key is per device or is shared by a common class of devices, right? Okay.
It's generated per device. Use some UID similar mechanism to generate the key. So it's per device. According to our knowledge. Yeah. Any other questions?
Is there any scope on the iPhone for the sensor sniffing attack if you have root?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
So on the Samsung S5, you said with a custom ROM, it's possible to sniff the fingerprint sensor data. And I'm just wondering if the same thing would be possible on the iPhone.
Did you get the question?
Sorry, maybe we can talk offline.
Okay.
There is some echo here in our area, so we cannot hear it clearly. So we can communicate offline.
What is the encryption that is used in iOS for communicating with the actual sensor?
Oh, we don't have clear knowledge about that. Some, in the implemented in the hardware, we don't have much time to reverse engineer it yet. Sorry.
Yeah, based on our specification, it could be AES 256 or something. So it's in their specification, but we have no way to access documents. So it's a proprietary in their chip. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, maybe that's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.